Good day and welcome to Creative Spirit. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. My name is Carolyn Campbell, and I am very happy to have you here with us as we begin our Advent journey together. We like to start our sessions singing from our hymn book here in the United Church, Voices United. If you happen to have a hymn book at home, great. Otherwise, I'm hoping to have the lyrics on the screen for you, so keep your fingers crossed. We'll start with Voices United number 5, All Earth is Waiting. All earth is waiting to see the promised one, and open furrows await the seed of God. Of a world bound and struggling, seeks true liberty. It cries out for justice and searches for the truth. Thus says the prophet to those of Israel, our Virgin Mother will bear Emmanuel, one whose name is God with us, a Savior shall be, through whom hope will blossom once more within our hearts. Mountains and valleys will have to be made plain. Open new highways for our God, who is now coming closer. So come all and see, and open the doorways as wide can be. In lowly stable the promised one appeared, yet feel the presence throughout the earth today. For Christ lives in all Christians and is with us now. Again on arriving, Christ brings us liberty. And one more. Our next hymn will be number 55 in Voices United, In the Bleak Midwinter. And yes, I am dipping into the Christmas pool. I know. Don't send me hate mail. But I find that as this coming Sunday, being our first Sunday of Advent, is hope, that In the Bleak Midwinter is a very hopeful hymn. It's kind of like a hug in a cold winter's night. And as we have just recently seen a little of that winter finally come around in Southern Ontario, yes, I thought that it was very appropriate. So let's go ahead and do verses 1 to 3 of In the Bleak Midwinter. Snow and Feel So Good. I do love that. It's one of my all-time favorite hymns. So hope. Oh my goodness, hope. And it would be fair to say that for many people, in particular this year, Advent is a time of extreme busyness and stress. And for others, it's a time of sadness and grief and withdrawal. And ironically, I suspect for many, it is both this year. The expectations of this time and what it's supposed to be can definitely put anxiety into any of us. And this year we will strive. What I want to do here in Creative Spirit is strive to live these days proactively and as simply as possible. We'll start each of our sessions with the intention of finding something good in our lives. And what we do here at Creative Spirit absolutely is that good, right? And we will see God in God's creation and in our creating and in God's people. So I will light, if I remember where I put, I was going to say if I remember where I put my matches. I'm going to light our first candle, and it will be the candle of hope. God of hope, we are looking for you as we start this new church year. We intend to look for you in your creation and in your people. We intend to listen and see and taste and feel your goodness and not get distracted by what's happening around us. Be with us, hold us, accompany us, and bring us hope. Let us take a moment in prayer. Creator God, restore our hope so that if we look for you, we will see you in your creation. Create in us a feeling of closeness to you. And together we say, help us to live this day intentionally with you. Christ, give us hope that if we set our minds and our hearts to look for you in all people, we will see you. And together, help us to live this day intentionally with you. Spirit, give us the curiosity and imagination and strength to see you through the clouds of our cultural messiness. Help us to see more clearly and live more fully. Help us to live this day intentionally with you. Amen. Now we head into our spiritual practice of creativity, and you will need for today a few things. Yes, you will need 2 pieces of watercolor paper. All right, this is 9 by 12 watercolor paper, 140 pound, and you'll need 2 sheets of that. You will need some random pieces of wrapping paper or perhaps any kind of colored paper that you may have at home if you happen to do a lot of homemade cards, or you may have the scrapbook paper around. That's great too, but any kind of printed or patterned or colored paper, even recycled envelopes if you happen to have any of those. I like to say a lot around here, check your gray bin, check your recycle bin, because you might be surprised what you may be able to find. If you don't have wrapping paper around, or if you have not pulled out your wrapping paper from wherever it might be hiding, right now we certainly are starting to get inundated with Christmas ads in our newspapers, right? And you get those glossier ads, like the Shoppers Drug Mart is a fairly glossy ad that I happened to notice the other day came in. There's lots of pages that have color and pattern for you to use. So that, also perhaps if you've got any old textbooks that are going into the recycle bin that you may want to use text, the newspaper is great. You can use text from it. Again, the recycle bin from anything that might have happened at church, that kind of thing. A few pieces of text might be an idea as well. Then on to the more obvious things, aside from the watercolor paper. 2 jars or glasses of water. 1 for dirty, 1 for clean. All right. And I even had to label them at one point because I kept putting my brushes in, the dirty brushes in the clean water. It happens. FYI, don't have a cup of coffee close to this. If you're going to have coffee, have it like a full arm's length away, because it has happened personally where you dip the brush into the coffee. Yeah, it's bad news. All right. Some painter's tape or masking tape, glue stick, Sharpie pens, like the fine and ultra fine, metallic marker if you happen to have it, paint brushes. So I think this is around a number 8 or 10. I'm not, I keep saying that and I honestly don't know how easily you can see this. Oh, that's just a printed piece. Here we go. So a round, this is called a round brush, about an 8 or a 10, or a 6 if that's what you happen to have. A flat brush or any whatever larger brush you might happen to have on hand. This is just for applying water. Scissors, some saran wrap. So you're going to need some pieces of saran wrap. So have a roll of saran wrap handy. Watercolor paint, be that in the tubes or be it the pan, or if you have it in the liquid form, whatever form you happen to have. And maybe you only have watercolor pencils, that's fine too. And then perhaps some black and some white acrylic paint, and that'll be for splattering fun later. Yes, splattering. So you're going to want to make sure that whatever surface you are working on is covered. All right. Yeah, I've seen splatter all over the place before, even the clothes. Now this is watercolor, so I mean it will wash out, and even if it dries, it doesn't become permanent. Acrylic paint, having said that, if the thing that we're splattering is the acrylic paint, well, that's a different story. Acrylic paint, once it dries, it's permanent. All right, something to think about. So if you'd rather wear a smock or not splatter, but I gotta tell you, splattering is half the fun. All right, and a paint palette. And you'll notice that this has currently dried watercolor in it. And the reason that I haven't cleaned out the dried watercolor in it at the moment is because I'm going to use the same colors, but watercolor, as I just mentioned, you can reconstitute it again by adding water, right? It will reactivate. And so if you've got it in your palette, you don't have to just, if you've got a glob of it in there, you don't have to waste that. You can save it, it can dry up, you can add some water to it, and it'll be good as new. All right. Let's see. Oh yes, and when we did the scrap paper, I think that's it. I think we've covered everything. All right, so let's get down to business here for the piece for today. And as much of what happens with a creativity as being your spiritual practice, it is about creating that ritual, preparing your heart and your mind and your space, right? And much about Advent is preparing your heart and your mind for Advent. And so I thought over the 4 weeks, and I'm letting you in on a big secret here. No, it's not a big secret, but I'm letting you in on the fact that you will find that there will be hearts in all of your Advent pieces this week, or over the 4 weeks, because we are preparing our hearts and our minds through Advent. All right, and it is going to be intentional. You need to be very in this moment. So take one of your. Now you can have, because I said to you the other two, the other piece of card or watercolor paper, I said to cut it into 2, right? That is because you will find that while you are working on one piece and filling in the water, or depending on whether you want wet on wet or wet on dry, while one is drying, you can be working on another. And then once you have, then that gives you the option. And if you don't like the background on one, that doesn't mean that you can't use it again at a later date. I'll let you in a little secret. This was actually a piece that had just the orange and yellow and red background that had some leaf prints in it from some earlier Creative Spirit sessions during the season of creation. And I don't know if you can see it there, whoops. But here up at the top, there's this faint leaf print, right? So I'm reusing art. That's okay. So if you're not happy with one background, you can always save it and use it for another piece. What I'm going to do here is I am going to tape this down. Now, you can, when we tape this, you'll notice this, I didn't go all the way to the edges. Oftentimes when we tape pieces down, what it does, if we paint all the way to the tape, it leaves this beautiful white border, right? It gives it a very finished look. But also, taping your piece down allows for the paper to stay relatively flat because it's going to want to curl as you add more water to it. Unless you happen to be working on a very high-end pad of watercolor paper that comes in what they call a block, where it's attached down, I think, on all four, or at least three sides anyway, then you don't get that warping. But that's not what we're here. That's not what happens here. All right, so I'm just adding some green tape. And I like starting with the wet on wet, because it's fun and easy, and you don't necessarily always know where it's going to go, right? And this doesn't have to be all wet. So the thing is that if I just add, and I don't exactly 100% know whether or not I've covered it all, that's fine, because then the paint won't actually move into some places, right? Watercolor, you like to start, if you're going to layer colors, start with your light colors first. Now see, my brush wasn't 100% clean because now that yellow has got a little bit of a green tinge to it going on. That's fine. But maybe for you, maybe hope is, maybe as you're moving towards hope, maybe that's where the light is. Maybe that's, give yourself some thought. Allow yourself to think, first of all, if I had to say hope was a color, what color would I say hope was? And think about it. So I'm thinking that I'm going to want some darker colors in the middle, moving out into, as we have hope, we're always moving towards that hope, right? It's something that hasn't been actualized yet. So now I'm going to add some of this pink color. And you see, I'm being kind of random about it. And you can tell when that's starting to dry, so I'm just going to add some water. I need some more, adding a little more paint to my palette. And along the edges as well. Okay, rinse. And then get the excess off. And I'm going to want this blue. Whoa, look at that blue go. Whee! Okay, you know what I'm going to do, because I kind of want it to drip, I'm just going to lift up. Just going to lift this up real quick. She says. Sure. Sure I am. Oh, and you'll see Don't worry about it dripping off the, right, you're working on a surface that's okay to do. And let's see, what if I do, whoa. Feels like I'm going wildly out of control now. That's okay. Let's see. This feels fairly dry up here. I'm going to add a little more water. And I'm going to go with the purple. Oh, well, now I've just mixed the purple and the blue together. It happens. Go with it. There is no wrong, right? So if these are the things that happen, then so be it. Now you can wait for that to dry. You can take a hair dryer to it if you want, but I think I'm going to leave that at the moment. What you would do is you would set it aside, kind of tape it down again, just so that you don't have, so that it doesn't buckle too much, and then go on to your second piece. Now, actually, while that's still wet, while that is still wet, I am going to just add some saran, okay? Add some saran. Sure I am. Ah, yes. And so it is. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna add it. There we go. Yay. I knew that was gonna happen. But... okay. Sort of bunch it in. And it doesn't have to be over the whole thing, but enough of this is still wet. I love texture. I love texture in the watercolor. You can also blow on your watercolor, right? I mean, if you're finding that there's pools, much like this. So this was turning murky and it was pooling around here. I didn't happen to particularly like it, so I blew on it. Right, there's some of that happening here. Now that one doesn't want to move after all. So I'm just going to squish that in there. Okay, then you just leave that, squish it down here again, and let it do its thing. All right. You take your other piece, try some other colors if you'd like. When it's all said and done, you take off your saran wrap, and there, oops, oh my. Well, that'll be interesting. Okay. You take off your saran wrap, and you've got, see how the texture, right, the texture in here, and the texture down here. See, that's fun. And that's just, it adds interest. And like I say, it's fun. It is about the process, right? It is about being intentional, allowing certain things to happen freely and not trying to control it too much. All right, and I'm thinking, do I still want to add some dark blue on top of this? Yeah, I kind of feel like I do. So this is dry, or maybe the dark purple. Ooh, maybe the dark purple. Okay, I'm just going to rinse my brush. And again, artist's prerogative, right? And I'm going to dip it in the purple. I'm just going to paint out a section or two. And then I'm going to add, even add a little dirty water.
Okay. And it's just, it's experimenting. I'm going to take my damp cloth that I've been, J cloth that I've been wiping my brush off on, and you could actually then you can pounce it as well. Okay, and pounce around. And that just gives you a little extra depth, or, you know, and again, don't worry too much if you're like, oh, well, I'm not happy with that. That's okay. It is part of the process. Once you're in a place that you feel okay with, the next thing that you're going to want to do is cut the little hearts. So go ahead and, like I say, use your, if you've got some scrap text around, you can just take a hunk of text, right? Cut a hunk of text out, and sometimes I do it this way so I can see exactly, if there were words on there that you really wanted, you could put them sort of right in the center. I just give that a light fold. Oh, there's the word journey. Oh, that'll work. And then, and hearts are easiest, right, if you just allow, if you turn the paper as opposed to trying to turn the scissors. And, oh, yeah, that's awesome. Oh, I'm happy with that one. Love it when it works out great. Sometimes I get the stuff upside down. I had some music. I thought I was being such a smarty pants. And this is what happens when you're smarty pants. Yep, it's upside down. Yep, that happens. I may still use it, but I may not too. All right, so there's a heart. I've got some blue handmade paper here. I'm going to cut some smaller hearts. Well, no, maybe I'll cut, if you want to cut a larger one, because maybe you want to double up on them, this is what I would do. Sort of hold it down on top of, and then, right, just cut a wider rim around it, sort of. She says. All right, like that. And then we could glue those on top of one another. Okay, and a glue stick. Glue stick works really great for this. And before you glue them on your watercolor paper, I would certainly suggest, of course, that your paper be completely dry. So unless you want to walk away from it for a while and then see how it even looks, or you could take the hairdryer to it. And I'm just going to double up on these. All right, so just give that a good little, and then decide where you may want it. And again, glue it down. And this is always a good time too to be playing some music. Playing music, you know, it relaxes you. It allows to sort of, it aids in the mind sort of focusing on what's happening here, as opposed to, I've got to get this done because of my grocery list, or the place needs a vacuum, or I haven't done laundry and I don't know how long, right? Allow yourself the time. It's absolutely imperative that you allow yourself the time. We are preparing our hearts, our minds, and our space. So you have some music playing, you may have your cup of coffee on your non-dominant side, whereas you keep your supplies on your dominant side. You can go ahead and cut a bunch of others and just continue to add them wherever you would like, right? Glue them on down wherever you would like. And then you could go ahead with your Sharpie. Now, you might want to circle around them with the gold. In some cases, I went around them with the gold or a silver pen, and then with your black Sharpie as well, whatever might float your boat. And you don't have to worry about tracing perfectly, right? A lot of them, I just sort of scribbled around. This is part of the freedom. Allow yourself this play. Okay, scribble around like that, and then draw some draw some lines. Ground them. Or like these are all of your various hopes, you know, that are out there in the world. And like I say, you could overlap, you can cut as many as you want, big or small. Trace around them and then splatter. If you splatter, splatter, splatter. I find, now you can certainly splatter with watercolor, and depending on what, you know, whether you want to add splatter. I didn't add splatter to this piece. I had every intention of it, I must admit, but I didn't. Go ahead, and I kind of like the idea of white splatter. So take your palette and a white acrylic paint, and I want one of those wells. I'm just going to, I know, you didn't see me do that. All right. Just going to add a little bit of white acrylic paint. That's plenty. All right, that is plenty. And I'm going to add some white clean water to it. And I'm gonna give it a stir. You don't want it super murky, but you still want it to be opaque, right? So that you can't see through it, but watery enough that it will splatter easily. And once you have all of your other hearts and things down, and again, this is the part where you want to make sure that your surface is covered. I just roll my brush in it, and then I tap. I don't take the brush and go abracadabra presto, no. Tap. But you'll see, even with the tapping, that it's getting all over the place. And again, this just adds interest. And because we are going to be doing a series of hearts, and you may want to identify this as being your piece of hope, your piece being I-E-C-E, your piece of hope. You could write the word hope in on it. If you want somewhere, and words are great. I mean, if you've got words that reflect for you what it means to have hope, or things that you at the time right now are hoping for or wish for, you can use those words. And then I've actually stuck a little, now I did actually write Advent 1 down in there, but I also stuck a little 1 candle. So that's gonna be my little signature next week. There'll be 2 little candles somewhere hiding on it. And that will be, so at some point, I would have had the other hearts and things on, and I can still go ahead and do that once that splatter's dry. I'll go ahead and add some other pieces on it, and there you have your hope. When you take your paper or your tape off your piece, peel it sort of at an angle. It helps to keep the tape from pulling the paper off. The 140 pound, it shouldn't happen nearly as much, but this 90 pound paper, sometimes it does happen with. Yeah, all right. All right, so part of once you're done, or now that you are ready to start, I should say, once that I'm done, now that you are ready to start, I like to recenter, right? As this is an intentional. We're really trying to be intentional about our journey through Advent, and we are trying to be intentional always with our spiritual practice. And so the first thing that you may think about is trying to, what am I saying, or what do I mean necessarily about being intentional? So I want you to just sit upright in your chair or on your stool, whatever it happens to be, and feet flat on the floor. And I want you to just squeeze your toes together, curl them up, squeeze, and then release. right? And then just squeeze them, curl them up if you're able, and then release them. How about even with your hands? Maybe if your toes don't work and you can squeeze your hands, just squeeze them into a fist. Squeeze, 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 and then release. Squeeze, feel it. Think about, look at your hands and see how it feels, and then the feeling of release. All right, and you can do that with your arms or your shoulders too, up around your neck if that's possible, and then release. And one more time, up around your neck, squeeze, and then release. That's part of the intention, all right? So you're more aware, you're in the moment. And part of what we do as our recentering before you go to create is that I like to do some breathing exercises. So on a big breath in, I want you to think to yourself, may we see the hope of God. May we see the hope of God, and on the way out in all of creation. So in through your nose, may we see the hope of God, and out in all people. And in through your nose, may we see the hope of God, and out in all the moments of the days. And one more time. May we live life with hope, and out on purpose. And together we say our creative spirit prayer. Creator God, quiet my mind before it passes judgment on this prayer, my gift of time to you. Amen. So with great intent, play some music that you find calming. Make your space warm and welcoming. And like I say, have a beverage if you'd like. Allow yourself the time. Block out some time to create. There's a wonderful quote. I don't know who said it. As far as I know, it's just an unknown quote when I've seen it. But it is that I make art to show my soul that I am listening. And we make art to show God that we are listening. And so with that intent, and enjoy your piece. Remember, there are no mistakes. Go ahead and create. Listen for God. Live with hope. And I will see you next week.